I tell you a story.
You hear me, Giselle? Okay. When I asked my father what was the main thing that happened in his life, in his history, he replied to me, it was the first man on the moon. When I asked my mother what was the main thing that happened in her life, in the history, she said it was the assassination of Kennedy. And when I think about my own life, if I have to say the worst thing that happened in my life, in the history, it's 9/11. So, you see, it seems that the history of the United States is quite important for the rest of the world. So I wanted to come here and see it with my eyes, to exercise this million of pictures and movies.
So we went to New York, to Ground Zero, to try and understand what the space symbolizes today and how it makes people feel. And we asked our friends there, friends who call New York home, how it makes them feel and what it means to them.
I've lived here for about 2.5 years.
It's strange because I thought you were a New Yorker, the symbolism of New York.
I am a New Yorker.
What I think about in terms of being a New Yorker is that you're sort of like you're also a world citizen somehow.
How long have you been here, Jeff, New York?
13 years. You know, I think that New York is probably the best city in the world. It's got a little bit of everything. The energy's fantastic, concrete under your feet kind of a thing.
I think it's the clash of cultures. It's the fact that I can get anything I want anywhere, that there's people on the street that don't reflect my life or my experiences at all.
So many people are part of New York in so many different ways, whether they have lived here, whether they have family from here. Of course, this is an immigrant city. You know, this is a city built upon people from all different cultural backgrounds coming together.
It's a city that's used to kind of getting over crap and kind of starting anew. Sometimes too much so, we tend to forget things, but it's very much part of our story.
The way we've survived is we pretend in many ways it didn't happen. I know that sounds really extreme, but it was extreme, and we live here.
Do you think about it?
I think most people here do, even if they don't say it. And nobody really liked the buildings, which is the truth, and then we don't really talk about that anymore, that no one really particularly cared for these buildings, that they were actually rather ugly, but they were just a fixture of this city. And when you were walking around these streets, you would always know which direction you were going because you would see the buildings.
Yeah.
And it's like little things like that that are just gone. It's still a strange feeling.
Have you been to Ground Zero recently?
I haven't been recently. I don't know that New Yorkers go to Ground Zero.
You know, I haven't been around it much, but there was this one time when I had to take the train in from Jersey, and as we came into New York, it comes into that hole.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it would come into that hole. It comes like, I don't know what it does now, but then there was a huge hole and the train came into it. And I turned around and I saw where I was and I had this huge intake of breath and I was totally tacky, but I was stunned by it and I started to cry. That was weird. That was like the first time I'd really unintentionally placed myself there.
I've kind of done the reverence and the memorial years ago after it first happened. Now it's just a construction site.
There's nothing to see. It's just, as horrible as it sounds, it's just a hole in the ground.
People who weren't here don't understand it, and I think they're trying to experience it, but it's difficult if you weren't here. You can't get a sense of the horror, you know, at the moment, looking at a construction site.
I wonder if people are going down there to try to understand the war and try to give themselves reason to support this horrible war that's going on. And maybe it's also it makes us feel relieved that it happened to someone else and not us. You know what I mean? And there's so much been bickering and fighting over how they're going to rebuild that site, and it changes all the time. And you know, the people who wanted it to be as big as it was, and
now it's the Freedom Tower coming. Do you like this name?
fuck off, you know? Not you. You know what I mean now? I just think it just feeds into fear. Like the whole friggin' freedom fries thing, Mr. Frenchman. How stupid was that?
Oh, I can't say anything.
You can say
yes,
things.
That was so stupid.
we can't let us stop us. We have to move, we have to continue. Life moves on. And I think people actually come to Ground Zero to see the progress. But also, of course, it is a memorial. It's a burial ground. I mean, and that's not the hopeful part. I understand.
It's kind of been at a standstill for so long, and I don't see a reason to kind of celebrate that by coming here.
But then it's difficult, particularly when you travel the world and when you see different parts of the world. Of course, we all have the same impulse. Oh, this is novel. I want to take a picture of this. But also, we need to be understanding and forgiving of people who do things that we might initially be annoyed at, in that this is their way of understanding this. This is their way of experiencing this. And who am I, who are we to say, your way is no good? Everybody was affected by this. Throughout the world, everybody was affected by this. And everybody has a right to interpret it and to process it in their own way.
Ground Zero is something that is highly important because of the incredible variety of reactions that it's eliciting just by its mention.
For me, Ground Zero is like a wake-up call. It takes 3,000 dead in one big city to realize that everywhere in the world there are people who suffers, and the US is not the big country that everyone wants to have as a model.
A very big and horrible symbol of hatred, of lack of tolerance in the world, lack of better ways to resolve things.
It means death and resurrection, death of an old paradigm, us versus them, and resurrection means the new paradigm that says no more war on terrorism, only creative solutions for all our problems. We can harness our collective creativity and our collective compassion to do that.